Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. Thank you, glass clangers. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the City Club Mayoral debate, which is sponsored by the League of Women Voters today. Our candidates today are Jim Francesconi and Tom Potter, and moderator is Randy Gragg, our version of Jim Lara. Before we get started with the debate, however, we'll go through a few announcements, and we would like to give a special welcome to students from the Quest School. They're sponsored by the law firm of Lindsay, Hart, Neal, and Weigler, and they're here today with their teacher, Joseph Hessner. Welcome. Pardon me. Civics firsthand, up close and personal. I would like to make an announcement for the League first. The League is sponsoring a Watch Together presidential debate at the Mission Theater. The next one will be on October 13th. And Mission Theater, McMenamin's Mission Theater, is on 16th and Gleason. After the debate, the discussion will be moderated by Mike Burton. So that should be very enlightening, plus a lot of fun. Our next Friday forum is on a very serious matter, and it's been covered very well by NPR, and that's the crisis in Darfur. The UN is calling it the world's worst humanitarian disaster. The speakers will be Neil Kenny Geyer, who is CEO of Mercy Corps, and in addition, Randy Martin, who's the Mercy Corps' Global Emergency Operations Director, will be here. He has lived in the Sudan and is just recently back. On October 18th, on a much lighter note, we'll be co-sponsoring again the Candidates Gone Wild Forum at the Roseland Theater. And the candidates there will be our distinguished panel today, Jim Francesconi and Tom Potter, Golia Mary and David Wu, Sam Adams and Nick Fish, and music by the Minders. Sorry, I'm so out of it. But I'm a little more in it when it comes to this one, because we're going to have a hard hat party on October 14th, which is a fundraiser and party to raise money for the City Club's new street front headquarters. We're going to be an actual place. When people say, who is City Club or where is City Club, you kind of go, well, it's not a where. Now it's going to be a place, and that's on the corner over here. Actually, I should read you the proper address, 901 Southwest Washington. And Jake Oakenberg, who you will meet a little later, his band is going to be playing. It's called the Retrofits. That's why I'm a little more with that one. And food and drink will be by our new cafe partner, Voila Catering. Anyway, we really, really would like to see you there. Lots of hard hats, lots of fun. And we really are looking forward to having a great fundraising. Now, details on all of these events that I mentioned are always available in the bulletin. They're also available online at pdxcityclub.org. And while you're online, we now have a citizens blog. So after each meeting and after each event, someone posts a comment about it, and then you're welcome to post comments in addition. So it's a good way to get to extend your luncheon experience or the experience of something else where you may not have had a chance to talk about it. I would like to introduce Jake Oakenberg now. There he is. He is a member of the Board of Governors, and he's the chair of the membership committee. Jake is project director for the Oregon Business Council, and he helps coordinate the Oregon Business Plan, and he's going to talk a little bit about the membership's benefits of being a City Club member.
Hello. I joked the last time I gave this pitch that in my new capacity as a City Club board member, they put me as chair of the membership committee and gave me the very, very easy task of more than doubling the membership over the next 3 years. And so this is why I'm giving this pitch again, starting off slightly different. Earlier this year, Art Alexakis from the Portland-based band Everclear released a song entitled Blackjack. The chorus is this: "Don't tell me that you didn't see this coming down. No, please don't say that this isn't what you wanted now. This is your American dream. Everything is simple in the white and the black. Never need to see the gray anymore. Never need to be afraid when you are happy with the blackjack. The lyrics are powerful. It's a plea for people to think, to discuss, to go beyond the sound bites that always pit one person against another, leaving no room for intellectually honest, rigorous debate. City Club is one answer to this plea. Forums like today's allow us to dig deeper into the issues of our city and region. Research reports like those we have released on community policing and affordable housing allow thoughtful analysis of some of the most complicated issues in our society. From forums to research to the new leaders programs, issue committees, citizen read books, citizen salon dinners, and more, City Club is ensuring that we have numerous ways to see things in more than just black and white. For those of you who are members, thank you so much for supporting our work. For those of you who are not, please join us. And for those of you who have been members before and are excited by forums like today's and the work that we are doing and continuing to expand upon, please join us, rejoin us again. There are membership brochures on all your tables. Take one with you, or better yet, fill it out and hand it to one of our great staff on the way out. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jake. I don't know if any of you remember, but Jake ran for this very position at one time a few years ago. I think he's working up to doing it again, no doubt. We're really proud of our new leaders in the club. Now, I just want to mention that our sponsors for this quarter, which make these broadcasts responsible for making these broadcasts available to both TV and radio, are McEwen Gisvold, LLP, Medico Support Services, Inc., and The Standard. We're very grateful for their support. Now I'm going to introduce Randy Gragg, but if there are any electronic devices that are still on, please turn them off so we won't be interrupted. Randy Gragg, for the last 24 years, has written on art, architecture, and urban design for a wide range of national and regional publications. But since 1990, he's written on architecture and art for the Oregonian. Besides writing, he's very much involved with the arts in Portland and has chaired some very successful events. A native Nevadan, Gragg earned a journalism degree from University of Nevada and a Master of Fine Arts in Photography from the University of Washington. And he will introduce the rules, regulations, the rules of engagement, and our debaters. Randy?
Thanks. Can everybody hear me well? Okay. For 3 decades, Portland has resisted the national trend towards what sociologist Robert Putnam describes as bowling alone, where most other American cities have steadily lost their sense of community cohesion. More and more Portlanders have packed public meetings, attended neighborhood association meetings, and participated in civic clubs like this one. That sense of cohesion, I think, is the common denominator between many of the things the rest of the country celebrates about Portland, whether it's being the best North American city for biking and walking, having the highest percentage of women-owned businesses of any city in the country, or even being one of America's best cities for independent filmmaking. In Portland, it's easy to assemble an audience to try something new together. As candidates for mayor, that's essentially your job, to gather the widest group of citizens to participate in your vision of the city. And as the polls have wildly tilt to and fro suggest, both of you still have a lot of work to do, I think. So far, most of the electorate regards a vote for either of you more as a roll of the dice rather than a knowledgeable step down a well-defined path. So today you get another chance to convince us, not just of your ability to lead, but how and where you're going to lead us. We have a very formatted event today. First, each candidate will give a 2-minute opening statement. A coin toss determined the order of appearance in this debate. Following the opening statements, candidates will respond to questions suggested in advance of this meeting by City Club and the League of Women Voters. A question writing committee from the 2 organizations composed the final set of questions. These are the only questions which will be asked today. There will be no questions from the floor. We will rely on the judgment of our panel of City Club members and League of Women Voters members seated here, over here, to decide whether or not the questions have indeed been answered by the candidates. If 2 or more of these members raise their cards indicating they feel a question has not been answered, I'll restate the question and ask the candidate to reply again in 30 seconds or less. Our panel today consists of Megan Steele, a member of City Club Program Committee, Doug Marker, President-elect of City Club, and Amanda Fritz, member of the League of Women Voters. Following those questions, the candidates will have an opportunity to ask questions of one another. Following the rotation of candidate questions, each candidate will make a 3-minute closing statement. Please be respectful. Please hold all applause or expressions of pleasure or catcalls or anything else until the end of the program. Rowdy City Club members. Aubrey Russell will be serving as our timekeeper today, and he will be signaling me when time is up on each question. Jim Francesconi's first urge to lead came as a teenager when he wanted to be a priest. He must have been promising. During a homily of his wedding, his wife told my colleague, Hank Stern, the priest said, "This is a waste of a good man." Jim came to Portland as a community activist at St. Andrew's Church. He co-founded the Youth Employment and Empowerment Coalition, ran a successful small law practice for 17 years, and then won election to the Portland City Council, a post he's held since 1997. Tom Potter told my colleague, Hank Stern, that he had always regarded the Oregonian as a great bathroom reading. But it was while reading the Oregonian one Sunday that he decided to run for mayor, which of course begs the question of where you decided to run for mayor, Paul. Before that pivotal moment, Tom spent 27 years with the Portland Police Bureau, serving as chief from 1990 to 1993. He also served as executive director of New Avenues for Youth and is now a national consultant on community safety issues and an advocate for civil rights. I would now like to ask the candidates to approach the podium, and we will begin with the opening statements. We will begin with an opening statement from Tom Potter, followed by Jim Francesconi. Thanks.
For the last 14 months, I've been talking with Portlanders and listening to their ideas on how to make Portland a better place for all of us. They love Portland. They want to be more engaged with City Hall, and they want a vision for Portland that includes them. When Portlanders come together, we solve problems. Portlanders know my priorities reflect their needs, not the needs of a handful of insiders. They know I believe the best government is one that leads by listening to its citizens. That money isn't always the solution to our problems, but people are. Our city's greatest strengths are our neighbors and businesses who want to be full partners in creating Portland's future. Portland is looking for a leader who can get us back on the right track. Let me tell you where I think the right track leads. As mayor, I will create an environment where businesses provide more family wage jobs so fewer Portland kids go to bed hungry. I will put cops on the street who understand how to work with their community to fix problems. As a community, we will invest in our kids now so they grow into successful adults. I will go to Salem and Washington, D.C. to bring home more of our tax dollars. I will strengthen our leadership in sustainable development, and I want to offer more opportunities to attract and keep the growing creative class in Portland. We cannot do this without a leader with the will and the skill to make it happen. I am that leader. I know what it's like to change the culture of the city's largest bureau. Now it's time to change the culture of the city. I'll end the turf battles, silos, and self-interest and lead us back to a shared sense of purpose that has always made Portland the envy of others. I'm not a career politician. I owe favors to no one, and I'm not afraid to make the changes that Portland needs now.
Jim, your opening statement, and please hold applause.
Starting now. I'm pleased to be here today with my wife, Shelley, my wife of 26 years, and my son, Brian. Portland has been our home for 30 years, and like many of you, we've tried to give something back to the city we love, through our church, through our neighborhood, through private acts of charity and public service. For 30 years, I've worked with others throughout the city to fight for meaningful change. Today, the stakes are higher. The fight is about the future of our city, because many of the things that we've worked for are at risk. So this year, the mayor's race is just not about two individuals. It's about putting Portland back on track. I'm running for mayor because Portland should have a leader with the right priorities, the experience to get tough things done, and the stamina to fight for meaningful change. On the campaign trail, it's become clear that there's some big differences between my opponent and I in terms of priorities. I'll lead the charge to bring good jobs back to Portland, to find funding for our schools, parks, to reduce crime in our neighborhoods, and to make government more accountable. With these priorities and my 100-day plan, we can improve our business climate, invest in transportation and environment, and still help citizens who are hurting the most right now. You deserve specifics, so here are 3. To improve the way we deliver city services, I plan to put one commissioner in charge of all the permitting functions in city government. So whether you're building a deck on your home or building a business, we'll be organized to help you achieve your goals faster. To set our budget priorities straight, I'll cut millions of dollars from outmoded procurement practices and some planning functions and spend the money on public safety, parks, and supporting our public schools. To achieve safe neighborhoods, I'll declare a war on meth houses. I've already met with Sheriff Justo and Commander Jensen for a plan of action to wipe out this environmental monster and human monster in our midst. These are challenges we can achieve, priorities we can afford. Voters will decide what's best for our future. My name is Jim Francesconi, and I want to be your mayor.
Please hold your applause. Thank you. We will now move on to the portion of the program where I will ask questions prepared in advance by the City Club and the League of Women Voters. Each candidate will have 60 seconds to respond to the question. Following each answer, the opposing candidate will have an option of a 45-second rebuttal. The candidates have not seen these questions in advance. First question to Tom Potter. When Louisiana Pacific left Portland for Nashville, CEO Mark Sewin publicly advised the city of Portland that it needed to develop a more proactive, business-friendly environment. When Columbia Sportswear left Portland for Washington County, it was widely reported that the move was due to Portland's unfriendly business climate. Are these characterizations of Portland perception or reality? Regardless, what do you plan to do about the business climate of Portland? 60 seconds.
I think that regardless whether they're perceptions or reality, the mayor of Portland has to deal with these issues. And the first thing I want to do as mayor is to begin to develop a more effective relationship with our business community. And to that end, I'm going to do 3 things. First, I'm going to establish a business office with a liaison in my mayor's office that will meet with the business community, that will determine their needs. Secondly, I will be working with both big businesses and small businesses on a regular basis to hear what their concerns are, to get their list of needs, and to work on those areas specific to the city. Third, I will, as mayor, create in February a forum where we can meet with the business community and begin to launch specific efforts to change. Yes, we do need to change. Those particular 2 companies have good points in terms of the city not being there. I think the mayor needs to go with the business community to other cities to attract new businesses, and we need to reduce the barriers and create a more hopeful atmosphere in the city for our business community.
It's both a perception and a reality. One thing we will not do is sacrifice this quality of life in 1 iota, because this quality of life that we have here in terms of our parks and our transportation system keeps workers here and attracts businesses here. The thing we're going to focus on the most is the quality of our schools and our universities. Right now, we have this income tax repeal on the measure that we must defeat, or we're not going to be attracting any more businesses here. We're going to continue to support Portland State and Oregon Health Sciences University. In the first 100 days, we're going to have the engineering building. We're going to contribute more to Portland State. There are some cost factors that we have to address. For small businesses, I believe the business income tax is high, and we have to continue to make some permitting improvements for small businesses. So there's both a perception and a reality.
Question to Jim Francesconi. We need leadership that will rally public support for education funding. What will you do in the weeks ahead to ensure the survival of Multnomah County's temporary income tax? What will you do in the years ahead to achieve stable and adequate education funding?
This is the most important question in our community right now, and I appreciate it very much. And first, what I've already done. I've been raising money for the schools repeal to defeat the repeal. And I appreciate very much the companies that are contributing, and I hope that we can all continue to do that. Secondly, my chief of staff is part of the key team that's working on how we defeat this, and we're providing all we can. Thirdly, at the the 100 house parties we've had and neighborhood events, every single one, we're advocating for the defeat of the repeal. Now, if it doesn't happen, it's such a if it gets repealed, we're going to lose 600 teachers. We're going to have a school year that is 6 weeks short, and we cannot let that happen. So the city will do whatever it can with others to try to lessen the length of that time. But the only thing we can do is marshal the forces to go down to Salem, but right now we need to focus on defeating the repeal.
Tom, 45 seconds.
What I would do in the short term is what I've been doing all along, and that is telling citizens all over the city of Portland that we need to defeat Measure 2664. This is imperative. We have to keep our promise to our children. As mayor, I will have started working with the county and the school district long before the measure would have come up, and making sure that whatever positions that we take, however we go about responding to this, if it passes or fails, that we will have a plan whereby we work together to ensure our children get educated. I want to make sure that we work on a regional basis with our regional partners to develop an agenda that we can take to Salem, that we can show the legislators in Salem why it is so imperative that they do their job and take their responsibility of protecting our children by passing legislation that protects our schools.
Question to Tom Potter. We hear that the city is facing billions of dollars in unfunded liabilities, including aging infrastructure, police and fire retirement, and environmental obligations. What is the amount of the unfunded liability, and what should we do to plan for it?
In terms of the amount of the unfunded liability, and you mentioned the police and fire pension and disability system, that's a serious issue. It's almost $1.5 billion currently. And that system has to change. When I was chief, I tried to work with Chief Bud Clark to make sure that we could change that system. What I would do as mayor is, first of all, begin to move more of the new officers coming in, not more, but all new officers coming in to hire under the PERS system, and slowly grandfathering the old system out. We need to make substantive changes now. And one of the things that we can do is follow the city auditor's recommendations and switch over to a state system where workers' comp is used rather than using the police and fire disability system. That would save approximately $4.5 to $5 million just in this next year. There are things that we need to do throughout our entire system, including the infrastructure of the parks and water system. We need a capital reserve so that we don't have to come back to the citizens to beg them each time for more money.
Jim, 45 seconds.
Well, 3 main points here. One is we do need to increase the capital at the city. We have only $1 million to cover parks, fire, police stations, and I've been fighting to do that. And as mayor of the city, we will increase that capital up to $10 million within within 2 years, because we do need to increase the capital account. But also the major construction projects on sewer and water, we need outside audits to make sure that this money is being spent well. FPD&R, fire and police disability, is an issue that needs to be addressed collectively and right away. But also, we need not to be incurring new things. The idea that my opponent has suggested of burying underground utilities in the city, or even the thought of condemning PGE, we can't be incurring new things without focusing on what we have.
Jim, do you support the city auditor's proposal for a voluntary system of publicly financed elections? And please explain your answer.
I support campaign finance reform at multiple levels, at the federal level, at the state level, and at the local level. The issue in Auditor Blackmer's is the proposal is to take $1.3 million probably out of police, fire, and park services, and that I do not support. Taking public money that could be used for our precious services right now and giving it to politicians is something I don't support.
Tom?
Yes, I do support Commissioner Stinn and Auditor Blackmer's campaign finance reform. It's needed in the city of Portland. I've got a way you can save that $1.4 million. That way we could keep it in fire and police, and that is if the people running for public office in Portland voluntarily limited their contributions to a small enough amount where we could actually have campaign finance reform, do it voluntarily, and make sure that the citizens, when they elect a person, that that person works for an entire community, not just for a few high-heeled contributors.
Please. Tom, this week it was reported that there are approximately 35,000 fewer students in Portland Public Schools than there were 40 years ago. We have repeatedly heard that families are either leaving the city or not moving into the city in the first place. What is the cause of the decline of families in the cities, and what can be done about it?
What was that amount again, Randy?
35,000.
Are you sure about that?
40 years. The questions are from
35,000 students taken out of the Portland Public Schools?
over the last 40 years.
Is that 4 or 40?
40.
40. First of all, I think that the reason that we have students leaving our schools are a couple of reasons. First is that a lot of the inner city neighborhoods, families are being displaced from there through gentrification, and they're moving out into the outlying areas of Portland and the suburban cities. Secondly is that the cost of housing in Portland is very high. It makes it difficult for families to buy here in Portland. So I want to make sure that we keep more of our families here by providing low-cost loans to them. In terms of what the mayor can do, I believe it's important that as a community, we come together with our families and support them, that we work with our children, that we go back so that we create a Portland that is family-friendly, that where the tax structure is reasonable, and that people want to move here. That can happen in Portland, Oregon.
Jim?
Well, we want to be a city with families that keeps families in our city, and we want to embrace the diversity that's happening here. That's our strength. And the first is back to our public schools that have been so important about who we are. So continuing to support them financially, but also the quality of our schools. One of the things I'm very proud of is the SUN program, where we have now 10,000 kids in after-school programs. How we do that and have before and after-school programs in every middle school and high school on a sliding fee scale basis, then market our city for families. That's one way of keeping and attracting families. The second is regarding housing and using schools as part of the central of our planning efforts so that we build more low-income housing for families. That's a second strategy.
Jim, a group of downtown business owners are organizing opposition to the local improvement district being formed to provide a portion of the funding to put light rail on the transit mall. One of their major arguments is that the transit mall is actually a burden rather than a benefit to the immediately adjacent properties. How will you respond to these property owners, and what position will you take on the local improvement district?
Building light rail on the transit mall is one of the most important things we can do to help revitalize our downtown and Lents and get transportation infrastructure out in the neighborhoods. Randy, what I've already done is led the effort to charge those property owners $17 million because I believe those property owners would benefit. By the way, Tom, many of those people contributed to my campaign, and I'm now charging them $17 million. And that's because it's the right thing to do. And so we need to work with them, many of whom had agreed beforehand, because they're going to benefit. And we take a 20-year approach here. They're going to benefit over time. Now, I also worked with PDC to make sure they put some money in this thing, and we put some transportation system development charges in this thing. So it's a joint effort. This is the type of public-private partnership, unlike some of these ideas I've heard, that produce jobs, produce housing, and a more livable community.
Tom?
I support the light rail on the transit mall. There are two things I think are important, though, and that is when should we have actually taken this project on? Is now the time during an economic slowdown like we've experienced when businesses are hurting to put further burdens on the downtown businesses. Secondly, I would have included more of the business community in the discussion about whether we should or should not, how we should pay for this. That's an important issue, is when you include people in on the discussion, I think that they're more likely to live with the answers that come up. In our community, that's a very important feature. And I'm saying that because no one on the Transit Mall has actually donated to my campaign.
Question to Tom. Because of last year's shortfall, Portland Parks and Recreation was forced to cut its budget in areas that the last parks levy could not entirely offset. Would you support a commercial system of development charges in order to generate revenue for parks? If not, what other funding mechanisms are available for parks?
Well, it gets back to one of these issues about setting aside capital reserves for our infrastructure, and parks are a very big, important area. I was advised by the Parks Director that the total amount of infrastructure changes and maintenance needed is approaching between $60 and $100 million. The problem didn't appear this year. It's been there for several years. And what I want to know is, why has that been allowed to accumulate like that? And so as mayor, what I would do is make sure that we look at ways to raise money, including the one that is mentioned, but focus on finding the resources to make it happen, make sure that the Parks Bureau is operating in a very consistent manner with good business practices, and ensure that we get more citizens involved in helping set and keep our parks clean. I was out in Southwest Portland working on a park recently with some citizen volunteers. They can do it much cheaper than park staff, and all they really want is some assistance and recognition from the city that they have value and that they're contributing to our community.
Jim? Sorry. Because of last year's shortfall, Portland Parks and Recreation was forced to cut its budget in areas that the last parks levy could not entirely offset. Would you support a commercial system of development charges in order to generate revenue for parks? If not, what other funding mechanisms?
I would not necessarily support the commercial development system, because I think that the parks has to live within their means, and that even though they have had cutbacks over the last several years, all of the bureaus in the city are hurting, and before we would move to a system like that, I would want to make sure that we have cut every possible area, and that a parks audit is in place to show that they are using their money well, that their performance audit is showing that they're accomplishing what they're supposed to be doing.
Well, my turn. We've done a parks audit, and that the auditor did. And the answer to your question is no, I would not support a commercial system development charge, and haven't for 8 years, for 2 reasons. One is that we have a business income tax that goes to parks. We have that other communities don't. Second of all, the legal nexus, that's a fancy word, but the legal connections between the business side and some of our biggest needs has not been established, and it's been threatened. But the answer to your question is how we're going to raise more revenue. We're going to increase the system development charge on housing developers, some of whom have also contributed to my campaign. And in fact, I was trying to do it now because we need more open space, and I'm proud of the 1,000 acres that we've accumulated since I've been Parks Commissioner. We need more trails, so we need more to do. So that's the answer to the question.
Question to Jim. What elements do you think are necessary for an effective independent police oversight system? Do you think the current structure under the Independent Police Review Division contains those elements? Explain your answer.
I think that Gary Blackmer did us all a great public service. He stepped into this and really made some enormous changes with the help of the citizens. I do think that citizens should be involved in police shootings and a review of police shootings. And under Chief Derek Foxworth, he's instituting that. I also believe that the Independent Review Board should review tort claims. That's when people are sued for the city is sued for excessive force claims. So I disagree with the mayor and the police chief that are trying to shield the city from liability. Their intentions are to shield the city from liability. But I believe there's so many of these claims that I think people are pursuing them through that remedy, and they should be in front of the Citizens Review Board. I think it can be done with some ways to protect the city liability. But reestablishing trust in our police is one of the most important issues in our whole community, not just Northeast, and this would help.
Tom?
I support the independent police review. As a citizen, I testified for its adoption by City Council, and I think that it does have citizen involvement. However, the litmus test should be not whether the particular system is in place, but whether it's meeting the needs of the community. Just a few weeks ago, the Independent Police Review released a report saying that from most of the investigations in terms of citizen satisfaction, a regular internal affairs investigation, most citizens weren't satisfied. But with mediation services, citizens were much more satisfied, so were the police. So I would want to increase those particular kinds of services and make sure that ultimately, in an end, that the police have to be accountable to the public, and so do those elected officials who appoint the chiefs.
That's the end of our question period. During the next portion of the program, each candidate will ask 3 questions of the others. Questions must be asked in 30 seconds. The opposing candidate will have 1 minute to respond, after which the questioner will have the option of a 30-second rebuttal. We will alternate between the candidates and begin with Jim Francesconi.
So, Mr. Potter, on the subject of jobs in our economy, your campaign brochure says you will build cooperative relationships between business, schools, and neighborhoods to create a healthy climate for responsible growth of social and economic wealth for all Portlanders. Can you tell us what specific experience you have in creating jobs and economic wealth that would qualify you to be mayor?
I've had 27 years of experience with the Portland Police Bureau. I haven't had 8 years experience as a city commissioner, but I have had experience working in the private sector for a nonprofit and also running my own small business. I believe that it's imperative as the next mayor, regardless of your experience, that you have the skills to do the job, and I have the skills. I have the experience. And I can work with the different communities of Portland, and I will work with our schools, our businesses, and all of the city staff to make sure that we as a community support our businesses, that we meet their needs, and that we determine what are the appropriate things that a city can do working with the business community. For instance, going to other cities to recruit new businesses to Portland. For instance, holding regular business summits, not just during an election year, but all 4 years of my administration, is coming in and meeting with the business community, finding out what their needs are, and operating on that basis, making public policy that fits our community's needs, including our business community.
Jim, rebuttal.
So this is a difference between us just in terms of experience. As a volunteer, I work to get kids into jobs, gang-involved youth. But I've also run a small business for 18 years, employing up to 15 people. I've also worked in our business, in our neighborhood business districts with people like Glenn Lambert from Division Hardware to help him just locate his business here. I've been on these recruitment trips, and I've walked the neighborhoods to talk to our existing businesses about how we can help them. And I've been fighting for infrastructure projects, light rail now on the transit mall, that will produce jobs now.
Tom, your first question.
Jim, you've stated that if you are elected mayor, you will drop any citizen involvement in a Texas-Pacific buyout of PGE. My question is this: how do you reconcile your duty as mayor to protect Portland citizens with your willingness to allow Texas Pacific to do anything it pleases, even when it's at the expense of our citizens?
Well, as I think it was publicized in the paper, and I guess you may have missed this, but I intervened myself on the Texas Pacific deal at the PUC because I didn't think it was a good enough deal for the ratepayers. And I felt that the appropriate place to protect our citizens was the ratepayers. The Texas Pacific deal doesn't offer enough for low-income folks. The rate relief is not sufficient. There's not enough environmental power in there. So I'm not in favor of the Texas Pacific deal. The question is, do you want to, as you've said, talk about condemning PGE at $2.2 billion of additional risk on our taxpayers where we have to build power generation plants? We have to build them because PGE doesn't have enough. Then we're going to set rates. We're going to bear the risk, and we're going to set rates for people that live in Salem and other places. So if this Texas-Pacific deal, if they don't offer more, let's look at a regional strategy. But we certainly don't want to do it on the back of Portland ratepayers.
Tom, rebuttal?
Jim, once again, you've connected dots where there aren't any. What I said and what I meant and what I will do as mayor is that I will be at the table. We should not leave any option off the table in order to protect ratepayers. That is the responsibility of the mayor, that's the responsibility of the city, and that's what I will do as mayor. It is important as a community that we clearly understand what are the risks associated with both Texas Pacific buying it, or in the end, if the city has the opportunity to purchase it. Those are issues that I think are fair questions for the citizens and for the utilities.
Jim, your next question?
Well, in addition to your willing to expose our ratepayers to $2.2 billion additional, you've also talked to Randy Gragg about how you favored burying utility lines at a cost of $1.5 billion. At a forum sponsored by the Mercury, you advocated spending $60 million for a new art center at Centennial Mills and another art building at Portland State. So how do you propose to pay for these, maintain these, and still have priority money for kids, for parks, for public safety?
There you go again, Jim. What I said, and Randy Gragg is right here, is that over a 30-year period, we should look at how we treat our city and the aesthetics of our city, including looking at whether or not our telephone poles should be buried underground. If you look to see the new developments in Portland, they are doing just that. It makes sense over a period of time, instead of cutting down thousands of Oregon trees, to begin to look at a better way of handling this problem. I think it's not without reason that we should at least examine that issue, and that's what I was suggesting, but not tomorrow afternoon, not next week, but over a 30-year period of time. As for Centennial Mills, I also said, and I don't know if the other reporter is here today, that we should be looking and talking about how we can save Centennial Mills. It's a historic building. People want to use it. Developers are interested in developing it. And before PDC tears it down, we should be looking at what our options are.
www.oregonlive.com to see what was actually written.
I have it right here. I have
Jim, do you have a rebuttal?
I have it right here. I have the article. And $1.5 billion for something that it's aesthetic, which means that the utilities, according to state law, don't have to pay for it, equals $50 million a year. For something that would be nice. I think it would be nice to have it. But at a time that we can't, as the questioner asked earlier, maintain our infrastructure and that create jobs and create housing, and then sending this message to the public that we can be doing things like this. That's not leadership. Throwing out ideas.
Tom, next question.
Commissioner Francesconi, during this campaign, you've repeatedly said that you should be judged on past performance. Yet during this campaign, you have flip-flopped on the Iraq War, gay marriage, and campaign finance reform. My question is this: is your past performance as a mayoral candidate indicative of your future performance as mayor?
I would ask the voters of Portland to examine my record over 30 years as a community activist, as a business owner, as a city commissioner. And I would ask you to compare that with my opponent's record of 27 years as a police officer. I would like you to examine my record as a city commissioner and his record as a police chief. And then I'd like you to form your own conclusions. On the issues, and I did not flip-flop, as you've said, on the Iraq War, and I hope there's another question and we can address it. That was one of the most difficult votes I ever had, and it remains the most difficult vote I ever had. Because like many of you, I've been opposed to that war before and other wars, and I even demonstrated against it. The whole city council in October did not feel that foreign affairs was the city's business. As I listened, the council changed their view. As I listened to the testimony, including from a mother whose son was sent to Iraq, I just couldn't bring myself, despite my personal convictions, to enter into foreign affairs. I don't think you elected me for that.
Tom, rebuttal.
I think it is flip-flopping when one week you march in an anti-war parade as a city commissioner, the next you vote against it. I think it's flip-flopping when you decide in 1 week that gay marriage is between a man and a woman, and a subsequent week decide that no, actually it's between gays and lesbians as well. I think it's flip-flopping when you say campaign finance reform is necessary, but we shouldn't spend $1.4 million to do it. That's flip-flopping. I think that our city deserves better leadership than that. It deserves people who are willing to stand up on the issues, be counted, and be straightforward with people, and be consistent.
Last question.
Mr. Potter, during this campaign, you've also made some vague promises about programs and references to new taxes that you'd like to see imposed. Your campaign materials say you favor a new tax on meals at restaurants for the arts and a surcharge on sporting events. And at a joint appearance with me, I believe you said you favored a regional sales tax. Specifically, how many new taxes on Portland families and businesses do you favor? And why do you think Portlanders can afford these new taxes now?
I would wager you right now, Jim, without knowing the exact number, that the sales tax on a warm food restaurants would be less than your system development charge on new construction in the city of Portland to pay for other services. We both advocated different taxes. And what I suggested, once again, before you connected the dots, is that what we need to do is look at how we're going to pay for some of these things that we don't have the funds for. Currently, the city is $15 million shy of having enough money to pay for all the things in the budget. And so Jim's 67 points, he has said he will find the money to pay for them, that he'll have 30 police officers on the street within 100 days. You can't get 30 police officers on the street. It takes much longer to go through the hiring process, the training process, and they won't be on the street. I think you have to make reasonable predictions. You have to be able to go out and at least discuss with the community before you do things to them, what are the possibilities? And as mayor, that's what I will do.
But as mayor of a city, you can't throw out ideas like this at a time that I can tell you how many unemployed folks I've met through this campaign, or single mothers trying to raise kids. Here we're in the middle of a campaign for schools to preserve and protect our most important asset. Then we have someone who throws out ideas like this and just said he doesn't know how much it's going to raise. And he put it in writing, and it's on his website. That's not the way that we engage our citizens in making difficult choices. There's a great difference between a system development charge that new growth pays for and a tax that everybody pays for that's very regressive.
Tom, your last question.
After 8 years on city council, Jim, you have a reputation for not being a team player with your fellow commissioners. As mayor, how will you suddenly mend fences to be an effective leader?
Well, first of all, my job as a mayor and as a city commissioner doesn't begin at City Hall. I'm proud of my relationships that I have with people on the council. We have very talented people who love this city, and I mean everybody on the council, and they care about the city. But at a time when our citizens are struggling for focus, and we're talking about building baseball stadiums, skateboarding downtown, taking over a private utility, differences will happen on issues. The question is, how do you set an agenda and move forward? I'm proud of being endorsed by Commissioner Randy Leonards, who's here. I'm very proud of my relationships with both Commissioner Salzman and with the mayor, and I would encourage you to talk to them, if you haven't already, about how I am to function. And Commissioner Stan is a talented person who cares very much about the city, and as he said, and I agree with, if we get the opportunity, we'll work together.
Tom, rebuttal.
From what I've heard around Portland and talking to citizens is that one of the things they really want to see is the city council working as a team. That's going to be core to the next administration. And I think it's important that you choose a mayor that can bring that about, that can create that sense of teamwork within city council. The citizens need it, our employees need it. They need to feel a sense of common purpose, of people working together, and we've got to set the example at the top. If you want people in the organization to behave in certain ways, it's important that the City Council model the behaviors we want to see in others.
We'll now move to the final portion of the program. 3-minute closing statements from each candidate. We'll begin with Tom Potter.
You know, I think it's great that I get to both open this session and close it by becoming the first speaker. I want to be mayor of this great city because I love Portland, and I know I can help get our city back on track. I will take smart risks. I have run a grassroots campaign so that on day one in office, I won't owe any favors. And I won't be looking over my shoulder to see if what I'm doing will get me reelected. This is about Portland's future. Even after living in Portland most of my life, the spirit and resilience of people who live here still inspire me. During the past year, I have spoken to thousands of Portlanders. They are excited about new leadership that will bring change to Portland. They are looking for a leader who can get us back on the right track, a leader that can work with an entire community to create a vision of a Portland where children are valued and nurtured and businesses and people flourish in every neighborhood. A Portland that knows no bounds or limitations, only the pursuit of excellence. A city built on the goodness and greatness found in all of us. Portlanders want a leader who can create hope and a leader that can inspire greatness in everyday lives of Portlanders. A leader who expects the best from every person. Hope is the precursor to change, and action creates change. Change happens when the status quo no longer meets the needs of a people. Standing before you is a proven leader for change who wants to work with you for a better Portland. Together, we can give direction to a future waiting to happen, because when good people come together, anything is possible. When you pick the next mayor of Portland, you need to look at their experience and what they've actually done. Are they willing to take a stand on important issues? Do they keep their promises? You need a mayor who's committed to change. Please join with me in creating a Portland we can all be proud to call home.
Thank you again, everyone, for this opportunity. You've helped focus on one of the most important elections in our city's history, not because we're electing a mayor, but because we're making a choice on two futures, based on two different set of priorities. Today, you've seen that there's a big difference between my experience, my plan, and my priorities, and those of my opponent. And it's more than a difference in style. I don't mind the projects that he thinks are important, but before we spend this kind of money on an art center, let's make sure we have enough police in our neighborhoods and we can maintain our parks. Before we do things like burying the utility lines, let's make sure we fund our schools. And when we talk about building a team, we don't take all the bureaus and keep them for 6 months and put the other commissioners out. We build a team to move our city forward. This is how we do things in Portland. Today, I've discussed my common sense priorities with specific details. I'll continue to fight to bring new jobs to Portland, and I'll seek employers who pay family wage jobs, like the jobs we brought here at Umpqua Bank, King Cycle, and Integra Telecom. And I'll make sure that living wage jobs are made available throughout the community. I'll improve the way we deliver needed city services, demand the coordination of all of our city bureaus with talented managers we have, and make government more accountable. I'll cut budgets, yes, insisting on more efficiencies, but that's where we'll find the funding for our priorities: public safety, parks, transportation, and our public schools. And I will fight to reduce crime throughout the neighborhoods by putting more police on the streets and declaring war on these meth houses, which are awful. These are real priorities, and they will guide us to a better Portland. Portlanders want specifics, or they feel shortchanged about what to expect from their leaders. Change is hard, and those who cause change have to get up early, stay late, and keep at it. You don't just call yourself a change agent and make it so. I'm running for mayor because so much of what we fought for as a community is at stake. I want to lead the fight to protect all that we've accomplished, to change what doesn't work, and to fight for the very best for our community and for all of our citizens. I am optimistic that Portland's best days are yet to come, and would be honored to have your vote as your mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. That ends the debate today.
Well, thank you. I hope that the League of Women Voters and City Club has enabled you to help you in making a decision between these two candidates. But if you're interested in a more unbuttoned and wilder version, then I suggest you go see them at Candidates Gone Wild on October 18th at the Roseland Theater. And we'll see you here next Friday for an interesting discussion with Mercy Corps on the problems in Darfur and the Sudan. Thank you for being here.